we're gonna, in terms of how we're gonna end mass incarceration. So George, you need to let me in with a new device.
I see you there. I hear you.
Well, that's because I was on with my phone. So let me see if the computer audio will work. It doesn't appear to be working. So I will sign off with the old other device. And so I see we have Joan, Samantha, Robin, Diane, George, and Teresa. And we have Jean, who is new. So I'll introduce myself, Jean, and then you can go next. And then other people can introduce themselves, with George being last. I'm Teresa Elamine, and let me turn on my video. I don't have my makeup on, but here we go. I'm Teresa Elamine, and I'm the Advancing Human Rights Committee co-chair. I'm also the organizer of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch, which is in Columbus, Georgia. And what's on my mind in 2024 is the fact that the director of public works in Columbus, Georgia, Muskogee County, on the stolen land of the Muskogee Creek Nation, says that they can't find enough prison slave labor to continue doing prison slave labor. So it's just a matter of time before the prison slave labor will go away. Hallelujah. So Jean, please introduce yourself, where you're from and your branch, and what's on your mind. Jean? What's happening, Jean? You don't appear to be muted, but you're kind of staring at things. Your name is Jean, right? Can you talk?
Oops,
sorry, but I have made many efforts but do not receive any sound. Well, I'm so sorry. Oh, well, let's go to Diane.
There's Jean. There's Jean.
I see her, but she doesn't have any sound.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Joan, would you let me facilitate the meeting?
Sorry.
Diane Blay, then Joan Goddard.
Well, Jean, I saw in New York, and she's been very active in WILF through many years, and she wrote some great
Diane,
books.
please introduce
yourself. I will, but I just wanted to say something about Jean. So anyway, I'm Diane Blay, and I'm from Fairfax, Virginia, in the Jane Addams branch. And my major goal, as I think most people in WILF their major goals are peace.
So that's on your mind for 2024.
You bet it is.
Okay, Joan Goddard.
Hi, sorry, get my video going here. Yeah, the light is kind of weird. Yes, I'm in San Jose area, California, in the San Jose branch, and I am looking forward to a lot of things being worked on. Obviously, the situation in Gaza is overwhelming most of all of us in terms of both information and trying to figure out what we can do. And I'm not doing things away from home very much at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan, because Gaza is the biggest open air prison in the world. So it's totally appropriate that we want to end that open air prison. So Samantha and then Robin. Samantha, unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Hello, it's Samantha Turner in Charlotte. I'm in the Southern Piedmont branch of the Southern U.S. WILP. And what I hope for, what I hope to work towards, well, practically, I think there's room for, and there has to be room for some kind of allyship in Israel proper. We, as WILF, are we in Israel? Do we have people there? I understand there's no real
Samantha, we do
organization.
not. But if you could just kind of be as disciplined as possible so that we're doing the check-in, and then we don't want to get too deep into the Gaza issue,
Okay.
because you remember last meeting, the meeting blew up over it.
Oh, I
So,
didn't, I don't think I was here for that. Okay.
okay.
Well,
So Robin, if we could let Robin introduce
sure.
herself. Thank you, Robin. I can't hear you, Robin. You gotta unmute yourself.
So yeah, I'm up here in Burlington, Vermont. Tomorrow we have our WILF monthly meeting. Of course, Palestine and Israel have been consuming my interest, my concerns, my heart, but also the Toward Freedom magazine that has closed as of a few months ago. We are continuing a small series, planning a small series of webinars on the subject of Pan-Africanism. We have the advice of a man who's involved in planning.
Excuse me, Robin. This is just a check-in. Could you save that for your report? You'll have 3 minutes later. So Jean, can we see if you can
I thought
speak?
that was a check-in. What I was doing was a check-in, but okay.
No, it was a little bit more than that. We
All right.
asked for you to
You're in
name
charge.
one thing that was
You're-
on your mind for 2024, and you started talking about everything you're doing within the branch. So Jean, could you please introduce yourself? Do you have sound yet? Well, in the absence of that, Diane, I'm going to circle back to you. So if you know something about Jean, could you say that? What do you know about Jean? Where does she live and what branch is she in?
Okay, well, I had said it when I started. She's in New York, and she's been a WILF member for many years. I think she was very involved at the UN. I hope I get this all right, Jean. And she's actually written some books like Bottled Cries at Sea about different. Anyway, so she's in Disarm and other things, but she's very involved with the UN, I believe.
Well, that's very good to know, because we had a couple of people from Des Moines branch, and they're not here yet. But Philip Cole appears to have arrived. So Philip, we're doing name, branch, and what is one thing that's on your mind in this new year here at our first meeting of the Ending Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty for 2024. Philip Cole, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Philip Cole. I'm a member of the San Francisco branch and live in San Francisco. And the one thing on my mind is I'd like to see the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, U.S. section, concentrate on peace. And that would be it.
Well, thank you, Philip. You're following along with Diane and Joan and others. So it's in keeping with the board member view of peace in the new year, since Joan Goddard and Diane are both board members. So we'll go to George Friday, who is our eminent program committee chair and board member, to introduce herself.
Good afternoon. I'm George Friday. I am in the Southern Piedmont branch, which is a branch I helped organize. I'm on the board as program committee chair. And what's on my mind for 2024 is hoping that we have an election season that is not crazy making, with so much money wasted and so many lies told for weak candidates all the way around. And I'm just trying to tell myself every day I'm going to keep my mind and not lose it and not annoy everybody by screaming about how much I hate it every time I talk to people. So that's what's on my mind.
Well, thank you, George. And I'm a bit disappointed that the co-chair of the Advancing Human Rights, C.C. Anderson, who is actually board member elect, had a great presentation that she was going to do that she sent to George. George, can you try to reach CC so we could find out if she's going to be able to join us?
Okay.
Is that possible, George?
I will call.
Oh, okay, great. Well, in the meantime, I'll start off with the state reports. So what we hope to do, as we've done in the past, is hear state by state what's going on. And so I'll be reporting from Georgia, for Georgia, and then we'll ask Robin to report for Vermont, Samantha and George for North Carolina, Philip and Joan for California, and Diane, whatever you can report about Virginia and the DC, Maryland region, since the branch covers DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And I know there are lots of people in Jane Addams. So we'll each take 3 minutes for our reports because I anticipate that the meeting will end in less than an hour. And I know we all can use the extra time. Well, the state of Georgia lives up to its reputation of being a penal colony. Of the 13 colonies in the very beginning of this criminal project known as the United States of America, Georgia was a penal colony. To this very day, it persists in using incarceration as a labor base for the state operations. So in the state of Georgia, there are 25 work camps, prison labor. Where I live in Columbus, Georgia, Muskogee County, Creekland, this is the largest work camp. A few years ago, it was turning out over 400 slaves every day. That number is down, I understand, to less than 200 because the Republican governor that preceded the current Republican governor said that mass incarceration is not sustainable. So he worked to try to lower the incarceration rate. And he obviously, his plan has been successful. He set up high schools inside the prisons so that people didn't get a GED. They actually graduated from high school. So he set up alliances with housing authorities so that people would not be discriminated against for having a felony record, and allowed them to move into public housing in the Atlanta area in particular. So these were some of the reforms that took place under Governor Nathan Deal, who now teaches at Mercer University, and he teaches criminal justice reform. And he comes out to speak anytime you ask him about his view about why we don't need mass incarceration. So Georgia is poised to do some significant work on ending mass incarceration over the next 5 years. And the Fannie Lou Hamer branch has a 5-year plan for working on that. So we could hear from Robin with her 3 minutes. Thank you, Robin. George is not here to do the timekeeping, so I'll try to do my best.
Okay, as I said, our WILF meeting is tomorrow. Tonight is a meeting of Free Her Vermont. This is a very, I feel is a very strong organization that is gearing up to challenge the legislature on the plans to build a women's prison. There are about 90 women in prison in Vermont. And when you break them down, and Free Her has a analysis of all this, you know, something like a third are women on bail. So they're waiting for, you know, decision to be made as to will they be incarcerated for a while. There, another good batch of them are there for opioid reasons. And only 3 are there for life sentences. So what Free Her is saying is we don't need another prison. The prison that the governor is promoting is, you know, millions of dollars, and where will it be located? And we need more, you know, mental health centers to and ways to help women when they get out to find a job. So this is a big deal, and our branch is going to be on it, and I will be going to an event tonight with Free Her and then bringing the information to our branch tomorrow night. So by next month, I'll have, I think, a very interesting report to give, because hopefully things will move forward.
Well, you're at 1 minute, 47 seconds. So you want to take another minute? Anything else you would like to add about?
No.
Okay, thank you. And so we'll now go to Joan and Philip. And so who wants to go first for California?
Philip does. This is Joan, and I don't have anything to report because I have not done a good job of checking for information, and I'm not deep involved right now.
Okay, let me go quickly because I only have a few moments before I'll be in the middle of the bridge. California, there's a lot going on in the California prison system. They have raised the minimum wage for prisoners to 80 cents, up from 7 cents. And also they have ended the forcing of labor. So if a prisoner does not want to work for 80 cents an hour, he's not forced to do so. And the other thing is that hopefully they will quit employing people at the federal minimum wage, because it's a very corrupt way to employ people, unfortunately. And I seen the first batch of prisoners years ago were paid federal minimum wage. And one of the first people to get out of jail after earning $4 an hour basically had his life taken from him because he had accepted a minimum wage job while in jail, because you have to pay off some corrupt prison guard to get that job, or some gang leader. And if you don't pay your debt before you get out of prison, they will kill you upon your release. So basically paying prisoners the federal minimum wage to work in private industry is a really bad idea. I worked for a company that employed prisoners. Well, actually, not at that time, but I dealt with the vendor, and it was a horrible thing to see. So hopefully, they will someday eliminate paying prisoners the federal minimum wage, and also that has only been in a matter of being able to do that for like the last 20 years. Before that, the last 80 years, private industry could not use prison labor. So hopefully that should end because it's a very corrupt system. Thank you. That's all.
I did find the incarceration rate for California, which is almost 100,000 people. And the percentage is very high. Thank you.
What's the total population of California?
Oh, good question.
Well, while you're looking for that, because 100,000 people in prison for a big state like California may not be a lot.
Right. The thing I've got here does say that it's 121% of the design of the prison's capacity. So
Oh, no.
Overcrowding situation, although I suppose it could be worse.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Well, what Philip reported around wage earners as prisoners is an important point, because at some point we can talk about states where wage earners as prisoners, which also goes on with a number of other rights, I think, which also include voting rights. One of the top states for progressive prison reform is Rhode Island. And so at some point, we'll have a guest speaker, possibly next month, from an organization called Direct Action for Rights and Equality. And they have a project called Behind the Walls. So I have met the person who heads up that project, and I'll try to get her as our guest speaker for February, Black History Month, because Direct Action for Rights and Equality there is a powerful community-based organization. But we do need to talk about why it is a good thing that prisoners get more than minimum wage, get to go to college while they're in prison, and have voting rights while they're in prison. I was stalling a little bit because I'm truly baffled. George, I'm not sure if she's back yet or not, but let's go to Diane to get her comments about what she knows about Virginia, and then we'll go to North Carolina with Samantha and George.
Well, I was wondering if anybody else got this. I don't know if you all are on Roots Action, but I am. And on Saturday, they came out with this thing about trying to get Virginia so we don't have solitary confinement. So I was wondering if other states got that too, or if I don't know how they picked out Virginia. I actually didn't think we had that much. I had read that we had legislation outlawing it, and I thought that. But anyway, so now there's this whole program, this whole effort to end solitary confinement in Virginia. And I was wondering if anybody else got that. I don't know if you all are on Roots Action.
Well, if you could say anything more that you know in your 3 minutes about Virginia and ending mass incarceration, and as a whole, does Virginia have the death penalty?
Yeah, they got rid of it a couple years ago, I believe.
Well, that's great. So you have any more to say about
No,
mass
no, I mean,
incarceration?
I was wondering if you all get Roots Action and if you had gotten this thing about solitary confinement.
I didn't get it.
Okay.
I do, but I didn't see that article. I know that Walisha Wilson, who was a member of the Metro Atlanta branch, had been doing some work about that. And maybe we'll get her because she's doing a lot as a formerly incarcerated person. So we'll get her maybe for our March speaker. The goal is to continue getting guest speakers as we had Nicole in November. So George, it's on you and Samantha to tell us what's going on in North Carolina. But if you could quickly tell us what's up with Cece.
I sent her a text. She hasn't replied. I sent her the meeting ID and told her how she could join, just hitting, the join button and putting in the ID. She might be traveling. She was.
George, that's enough. I'll give
Okay,
her a call. I have both her numbers.
very good. So I'll say what I know with North Carolina, and then Sam, you can add. The North Carolina Justice Center is working on a campaign to review sentencing so that the sentences that people get when they are incarcerated are more fair than they have been. And that's a campaign that's going on with the Justice Center. It's in process. There's nothing to report except they're trying to work with North Carolina county judges through the Judges Association. And the North Carolina Association for Alternatives to the Death Penalty have been doing a campaign. I'm going to share my screen and show you some photos about their campaign is to get rid of death row in North Carolina and to commute all of the sentences to life sentences or something other than a death sentence. And on December 13th, they had this big rally in in Raleigh, and a march. I'm going to slowly show you some of the photos. This postcard campaign is still in process, and we can be part of that. Our branch, Southern Piedmont branch, can be part of sending these postcards to the governor saying, no more death row. There were lots of speakers, as you can see here, and families. You'll see this family here that showed up about their son and uncle. And you can see from this that one of the uncle died in prison, as did the son, I think. So that's something they were talking about. I spoke with a man who's the director here. I'm not going to say his name right, so I'm not going to try it. But that's what's up. Samantha, you had
George,
yeah?
Cece, George, Cece is in the waiting room. Could you see if you can let her in? Samantha, do you have anything to add while George is letting Cece in?
Sure. I just want to add quickly that there is something positive that happened December 20th after years of fighting for particularly for men on death row. Governor Cooper commuted the sentences of six people and pardoned those 4 men on December 20th that were incarcerated as young boys and not proven guilty. So I had a letter to the editor published for that cause last year. So it was really nice to see it come around and happen. I know it's his last term, Governor Cooper, and he probably was waiting so he didn't get too much flack from our crazy legislature.
Wow, I love North Carolina. There's such a strong infrastructure of justice organizations. And Roy Cooper has been a bright spot in the South. And so at some point, hopefully outside of this meeting, we can have a discussion about what the leadership possibilities are for North Carolina, since this is an election year for governor. Now, Cece is saying she can't hear. So, Cece, can you talk? We know she's here. So I don't know why some people are having problems with sound. It was really sad that Jean couldn't talk. Well, let me just say this. I'm glad to know that Jean was here. There's an opening for someone from the U.S. section to be on the UN office board. So knowing that Jean is in New York, I want to swing back to her to talk about establishing the New York branch. I did apply for the UN board director position, and I talked with Katia, and it's supposed to start this month, but I haven't heard a word. And since Jean joined us, I'm wondering if she has some news around that. But let's just have an open discussion about goals for ending mass incarceration and the death penalty. You know, I named some goals for Georgia, but there is a national movement, and the Ebenezer Church, based in Atlanta, is part of the national movement. And our speaker from November was talking about that. And in June of this year, the national movement will reconvene. So I'm going to get up with Nicole, because I don't think I'm going to be at the meeting in June. So if we can find out what the national priorities are for the ending mass incarceration and the death penalty movement, I'd like for us to explore what we can do as the U.S. section of WILL, given there are numerous branches throughout the country, and the Triannual Congress, which is coming up in May, which is I see Joan is trying to co-facilitate the meeting again. But Cece can write in the chat if she can. But she clearly can't talk, and maybe she can't hear us. She's trying to connect to audio. So if she does, then we can hear from her, Joan. So thank you. But at any rate, the Congress should take up the advancing human rights issues. And currently, we only have 2 functioning working groups in advancing human rights. So our umbrella meeting is going to be January 22nd at 8 p.m. Please mark your calendar. It's the Monday after the Martin Luther King holiday. So at 8 p.m. on January 22nd, we'll be talking about the state of AHR. And I think I'll be announcing that the Affordable Housing Justice Working Group will go online. The Immigration and Border Justice Working Group is not functioning. One of the co-conveners of that working group, Rita Gonzalez, who moved to Mexico over a year ago, has completely resigned from Will. So it leaves only Adrian. I'll talk to Adrian about what he wants to do. But we have achieved the goal of people who are most affected by the problem, i.e., Latinx people, heading up that working group. Tina, who did her best, she is now a board member elect at large for the national board. She's also working on program for the Triannual Congress. So we don't have a migration and border justice working group that's functioning. So that is the general state of advancing human rights. So I will open the floor in these final minutes for any other general comments about the committee advancing human rights, because we went from 5 working groups. It seemed like the UN for Women thing with Barbara Nielsen never quite came through. Donna tried her best to get a report. It never came through. I do plan to do a report on the state of advancing human rights for the e-news. The deadline for the e-news is January 24th, which is 2 days after our umbrella meeting. So the umbrella meeting will drive what that report looks like. But just to be frank, we only have 2 functioning working groups: ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, and the UN decade reparations. I've agreed to facilitate or co-facilitate those 2 working groups. So at some point before January 22nd, the UN decade reparations working group will meet. It'll probably be on a Thursday. So I will put that out there on the branches list and the other lists as soon as we have it, but it'll be this time of day on a Thursday. So nobody's raising their hands. Are there any other comments or questions before we close the meeting? Because Cece, can you hear us now? She was trying to connect to audio and it wasn't working. Anybody else with any comments? Robin is the only person who's unmuted. Do you have any closing comments for us, Robin?
No.
Robin is saying no. So our recorded meeting, thanks to George Friday in her role as program committee chair for assisting us in the way she does, because I am quite low tech. She says she's in Honolulu and she's trying to log into Zoom. So that's part of her issue. She's not local, though she had a beautiful presentation, which we hope she could do next month. It was about the national state of mass incarceration, because she sent the presentation earlier to George. So it's really regrettable. I know she's having a wonderful time in Honolulu. Great that she's having a wonderful time in Honolulu, but she can't get on. So at about 10 minutes till 3, about 2:50, according to my time, we will adjourn the Ending Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty Working Group. Diane, you unmuted yourself. Would you like to say something, Madam Secretary?
Oh, well, I was just going to say that 4.4% of the prison population is in solitary confinement, and that 27 states have the death penalty still in the US. So I actually think ending those two items would be two good goals.
Sounds wonderful to me. So I would like we get a consensus on that. Ending solitary confinement, which is known worldwide as a violation of human rights, ending it, and ending the death penalty. The US is one of the few countries in the so-called civilized world that has the death penalty. So that's being put forward by our eminent outgoing secretary, who's going to be lingering along to assist the incoming secretary. And I am just so admiring of our Secretary Diane Blay and all she commits. But Diane, before we close, I heard that you were starting up a new project that sounded like an open discussion for members. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Oh, I think what you're talking about is I'm opening up the Jane Addams meetings to the entire WILF. And so we're going to have a speaker each month, I think. I'm planning on that. And then I'm going to have all the issue committee, the board and issue committee chairs being able to speak. And then general comments from anyone else, any questions, any comments from any participant is how I'm imagining it. So it's kind of, it doesn't replace the one WILF calls, but it's an effort.
It's wonderful. Well, when does it start?
Oh, January 17th is our first meeting. It's the third Wednesday. So we had one, I put out one email to the branches listserv, but I'm going to be getting an e-alert out about it. So we'll have it
because that's like next week, isn't it?
The 17th. Yeah.
It's next week. So what time? Because I know George and I have a meeting at 7 p.m. that evening. So what time is your meeting?
At 8 Eastern time.
Oh, that's perfect. Because we have a 1 hour hard stop at 8. So we will, I'll speak for myself. I'm definitely joining. It sounds fabulous.
Yeah, I hope it is. I think it's a way to keep WILF, hopefully expand it. Anyway, keep the interest.
You know, Diane, the more I get to know you, the more I love you. You have been the secretary and you have been the fabulous secretary, and you're coming out of the secretary job and you're going right into the kind of service that a volunteer member is just amazing. Because those of us who volunteer to do this work, you've got to love it. And you really show you love it. And I tell you, I feel like having an outgoing secretary party on Zoom because you have been fabulous. And by the way, I'm going to send you my request to be at the board meeting. So you know I want to be there. So if it falls through the crack, count me in. But you are so wonderful.
Well, thank you.
So Cece is still struggling. She's saying the camera is working, but the voice isn't. What were you saying, Diane?
Oh, I was, I said I'm still going to be working kind of as a secretary till Ginger feels comfortable. So I'm planning on that.
Oh, double duty. I love you so much, Diane. George, did you have anything you wanted to say? I saw
No,
you
I was just
unmute.
saying I was giving my thumbs up to having a party, a goodbye, great secretary
Well,
party.
it looks like we're gonna delay the party, but I'll probably come to Virginia and take you out to dinner or something, because I'm due a trip up to DC sometime soon, but I may wait until it's a little more spring-like, because it's getting crazy in the Northeast right about now.
Yeah, you're always welcome to stay at my house.
That would be a savings, because you know it's so expensive to stay in the DC area. Well, I'll remember that. But Diane, you are amazing. And I meant what I said about impeccable integrity. Well, let me stop going on and on. So if there are no objections, the Ending Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty meeting is adjourned. Enjoy the rest of your afternoons.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you.